I'm going to be reviewing Double Indemnity, Piercy, The Plot Against America, Recipes for Love and Murder, and Slay the Dragon. And we're also going to review this wonderful lunch that the CBC gave. It has fruit salad, vegetables, mixed vegetables, some Nanaimo bars, and a burrito, and or wrap, whatever. And they also had chips for giveaway at lunch. But the problem was that the CBC did not give out a vegetarian option.
I didn't notice one.
Which was very surprising. Because, I mean, there's a lot of vegetarians out there, and a lot of people could eat, like, say if they had given, in this they give a little ranch dressing thing. Well, they could have given a little tiny container of hummus, and then vegetarians, like vegan people, could eat it.
Wouldn't have to worry about that.
Yeah. So, and the burrito, as we found, it contains meat.
Chicken,
yeah.
And more chicken.
So, James will have to unwrap it, and I brought a little bowl here so he can put the chicken in for the dogs, and then I cooked some beans up here so that he can put that in his
I'm
burrito.
probably not going to do that on camera. It's going to be
okay. Well, that's up to you. But I brought it out in case, so sure. I can eat some beans.
Oh, steaming hot.
Yeah. Well, I put it on a doily. Or whatever. Hot thing. So, Double Indemnity, this, I guess it was nominated for 7 Academy Awards. Whatever. It was a good movie. I enjoyed watching it. It's in black and white, and I think anyone would like watching it.
It's hilarious, the cover. I just noticed it the other day. The city, you know, and check where they've got the title. You know, like a box shot on the box. Oh, it's kind of rude. Poor Barbara Stanwyck. I remember seeing her when she was a little bit older. She was probably in her 30s or something like that. Did a TV show, and she certainly wasn't much of a looker. Well, neither was Fred McMurray. He ended up on TV.
Oat dog. So, anyway, there's a lot of vegan options that could be put in there, and honestly, all the meat eaters would have been happy. Say if it was falafel in here instead of chicken. Well, there you go. Then everyone can eat it. It could be a vegan little basket with some hummus and a container and falafel in that wrap. It's not hard to do. Anyway, Piercy. Now, this story, it was based on true story of Saskatchewan farmer Piercy, blah, 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 the battle against Monsanto. So, this is something I'm familiar with because I am very interested in agriculture, especially politics of agriculture, and it's insane. Really, everyone should be looking into it, but I guess most people think agriculture is boring, so they don't. But oh my gosh, is it ever not boring?
You don't realize what they're eating.
Yeah. So anyway, this is about that, about the Roundup Ready canola. And if you look in the news back, you'll figure out what this was about.
Are you going to mention who the bad guys are? Or are you just going to mention?
No, I just said Monsanto and whatever.
Oh, Monsanto.
But it doesn't. Well, whatever.
There are lots of bad guys.
There's people now with genes. I mean, you have intellectual property and DNA. People were allowed to alter some DNA and say, okay, well that's our property now. That DNA, they're able to patent it, and so that opened a door to a whole bunch of problems. But at the same time, what are you going to do, right? Like, say with this COVID problem, would anybody been jumping to the opportunity to make something to stop the pandemic if they didn't have genetic protection of their product or whatever? You know, it's but I mean, it also makes you think. So who wins? You have Monsanto and other groups that are making little changes to genetic, to the DNA of various crops or whatever, and then that's their property all of a sudden. So nobody can, if their seeds grow plants in a neighboring farm, and then that pollen blows into somebody else's farm, and they didn't want it there. They didn't ask for they never bought the seed. They didn't grow the seed, but their seed then is contaminated. Their crop's contaminated with the Monsanto DNA changes, and that seed, although grown on the person's farm, it no longer belongs to them because the genetic property is patented, right? So, but their crop is contaminating other people's crops, and honestly, they should be held accountable.
They should go to jail.
Not be able to contaminate other people's crops and then say, oh yeah, that crop's now mine. Yeah. Because you can't have that seed because I've contaminated your crops. I mean, that's punishing somebody who's been abused. When you do that. It's ridiculous. And that's what's happened.
So it's like someone accosts you on the street, knocks you down, kicks you in the crotch, and then yells and screams, hey, police, come arrest this guy for assault. And the police come and do it, and the guy's prosecuted successfully for assault.
So, I mean, you have to wonder about the safety of your food. You're growing a product, say you're an organic farmer, you probably don't have a huge amount of land. If you do, well, lucky you, because you have to have way huger buffers and stuff to try to keep your crop from being contaminated than other farmers do. So you're being punished. If you're an organic farmer, you are punished more than other farmers are. They don't have to have as big a buffer to keep their crop from contaminating yours, which seems strange, doesn't it? And
it's just a way of punishing organic people, trying to put them out of business.
So, and trying to put small organic farmers out of business in particular.
The smaller ones,
the
buffers are going to cost them more.
They can't have the big buffer strips. So, anyway.
What do they grow on
buffers? It's been get big or get out in agriculture for a long time. And people have to wonder what the long-term consequences of that really are. And a lot of people think, okay, well, it's like, you know, setting it up for a future of kings, big landholders, and everybody else is slaves. Because, I mean, what are you going to have? Or, I mean, and you have to worry about the quality of your food. It's when you know that it's being set up so that a few companies will own it all. You won't have the option of collecting your own seeds, saving your own seeds, and growing food for yourself. It just won't be available.
So it's not just lack of quality. You won't be getting the proper amount of nutrients.
Well,
it's negative. Like, the stuff will kill you.
There could be stuff that's good. I'm not saying that genetically modified foods are necessarily bad. I'm not going to go out and say that. There might be some good ones. But in any case,
the stuff they're doing now,
you're not going to have the option of not consuming that. They're going to have a monopoly on it, on your food. You need that. So it's a concern, and most people, I guess, they just think it's boring, or they don't think it's a concern. They will find out it's a big concern. And I mean, you have something like, say, the pandemic. Well, okay, that's great for Pfizer and Moderna. You know, if they can keep selling prescriptions for their products, and countries keep buying them, and people keep using them, and whatever, then they're happy if the pandemic goes on forever, if they can keep selling their product. Okay, what about you? You know, is that good for you? Anyway, the plot against America. Now, this is a fiction thing, but it's looking at history. If what was it? Oh, I can't remember. It was an alternate sort of.
Charles Lindbergh, who
Yeah.
was a fascist, at least, at the very least, a fascist. In the 30s in the United States. He's the guy who first flew the Atlantic. What was it, in the spirit of St. Louis or St. Louis? What do they call it? St. Louis?
So.
But, yeah.
It's like saying, okay, well, what if he won? And it was, I guess he was running with, there was somebody running with Lindbergh or bust or something like that, or war. Lindbergh or war, I think.
Yeah.
And so
Lindbergh
they were
was
saying, okay,
fighting against going into the war, right? Against Germany.
So this thing looks at, well, what if that campaign was successful and America didn't go to war to help out Europe? And it's interesting. It's a well-made little mini-series, and I don't know if they'll just keep on going on forever. This is a limited series, but I don't know. I mean, I think it's interesting to just keep rolling with it. If they do, I'd watch it. They did a good job. It has Winona Ryder and all sorts of great actors. John Turturro. It's worth watching. Recipes for Love and Murder. And you know that I start at the top with the best, what I thought was the best, and I go to the bottom, and this was not as good as I hoped. The recipes look amazing. If you eat meat, there's meat ones in there, but there's vegan cake and stuff like that. So, and there's a little booklet inside that contains some of the recipes, which, wonderful! What a great idea! And so when I went into this, I'm like, oh yes, finally, there's the star of the series. She's an amiable sort of person, she makes recipes and she likes feeding people and she's pretty shy and she's not, she's attractive, but she's not a small woman. So, and plus you have the scenery of South Africa, which, wow. So, anyway, there's a lot of things going for it, and it just didn't make it to the top of my pile. It's, as much as I think that this series should have success, because, cooking, showing great food and people eating it on movies works to make the movie sell more. So it should work for this series. But, it just, I don't know, maybe it's that the town seems too small to have so much excitement going on, or I don't know. It also seems kind of, I don't know, it just didn't quite work for me. The mysteries didn't quite work. I can't understand why I know that they're newspaper reporters or whatever, but I can't see how this woman would get involved so much with mystery solving, but maybe seeing as what happened at the end of the series, she might be a really good person to have as a supporting character for crime solving. So I will watch the next season. I do hope for more than I got from this season, because I really want this season to work. I want this series to work, because I like seeing an amiable woman that's not a bombshell or whatever, and that has great cooking skills and whatever. I love seeing her in the lead role. So we'll hope for better next time. Slay the Dragon, about gerrymandering and about an aggressive propagandist who decided to take charge and get rid of gerrymandering in, where was it? Michigan, I think. But anyway, it's important. This is an important issue, and it's good to see that people care enough to get rid of gerrymandering. But at the same time, there was I think the most important part of this show, if you can make it to it, because it's going to be a little longer than you might want to spend sitting in front of TV listening to something like this. But if you make it to the part where I think it was know. It was some judge or something, or somebody on a panel. I'm not sure. You know what I don't know about American politics? I expected James to watch this and then talk to you about it, but he didn't. He listened to some, so maybe he can fill some stuff in.
Yeah, my back's been bad, so I haven't been able to.
What I was going to say is that, what was I going to say?
Near the end or something?
Oh, near the end, yeah. So there was somebody that was like a judge or something that was saying, well, and there were headlines that were put on by, I guess it would be right-wing people trying to shut down her initiative, right? And so there were some people that said some things near the end, and you're like, oh yeah, that's a concern, you know. Like one person said, talked about how 13 people being appointed to, I think this was the judge said this, to manage the map making, like the district boundary process or whatever. Is probably not as good as having elected people who are actually held accountable, and they're elected, you know. So he's pointing out that, okay, you're trying to make this more democratic for the people, but essentially you're privatizing it and sending it to 13 appointed people, which that doesn't sound good, right? And then somebody else was pointing out that the 13 people could be charging whatever. You don't know what they're charging to make this happen, and they could just give themselves huge bonuses or whatever for making the thing or whatever. You don't have control over it, and that's true. You wouldn't, and so, oh my gosh, that's not good. And
the solution might be worse than the problem.
Yeah, and so I mean, you see her driving around in a vehicle that has campaign slogans and stuff on it, and you're like, oh, okay, so she got a vehicle paid for her to do this work, and you're like, oh, okay, how much other money is she making doing this work? You know, which seems like it's portrayed as, oh, she's doing this volunteer, and that's what they're saying, oh, all these people are volunteers. When you get an aggressive propagandist up in charge of an organization, oh, there's going to be a lot of volunteers that they're going to convince to do the work for them, and they won't be volunteering. They will be giving themselves a huge wage. That's how aggressive propagandists work. And if you can't see that she is one, figure it out. You need to start noticing who's an aggressive propagandist before you volunteer for them. Because essentially, they are slave drivers. That is what they naturally are inclined to do. Don't volunteer to be a slave. Even if it's something that you really care about, find some other way to help out with it without enslaving yourself for them. Anyway, and do some research, because you don't want to be paying a huge amount for somebody who bribed. Who knows? Or there's 13 people. Maybe you're against the right-wing politicians. Well, those 13 appointed people might not be, and or they might be a little negotiable if the right-wing party wants to slip them some bribes so that they can get their map made just like how they want it or whatever. It's important to not rush through when you're making changes for the better in democratic societies. Take your time.
Yeah, so
you got to think things through before you just...
The 13 people, unlucky number. I think we're supposed to have been picked at random. I don't know how long their terms would have been.
How can you say that it's going to be picked random? You don't know. I mean, they say that, but how could you possibly ensure that?
We flipped a coin several times. Yeah, did you do it on camera or whatever? Photoshop things or whatever.
And they're talking, in that video, they were talking about all sorts of other issues that they shouldn't have brought into the movie. But I mean, documentary, how much can you say about this topic, right? So they brought some other issues in, like
they brought in
they were
race,
saying,
did they?
yeah, they were talking about how people had to show ID at the polls, and it's like, okay, you should have to show ID at the polls. And honestly, the way they do it, where they send in census and then they send you a little, here's your voting card, go to whatever. No, they should give you a voting card. It's government ID to vote, and you should scan it at whatever poll you want to. Like, there's been problems, I guess, in the United States where I have heard, I don't know because I don't live in the United States, but where in certain districts, like say where there's a African American majority, they have huge lineups, so they don't, they have to wait hours so they get to vote, whereas the wealthy people don't have to wait as long or whatever. I don't know if it's true.
It's true. They do that intentionally.
I suspect it's true.
Of course, yeah.
And so anyway, you should be able to go anywhere. You should be able to take your little ID card and go vote. If you're in, if it's an election in Canada and you're voting for the new Prime Minister of Canada, you should be able to vote for that Prime Minister, whether you're in the Yukon or Lethbridge or out east. You should be able to vote anywhere because you're a Canadian citizen. If you have your card to show you're a Canadian citizen, you're a government issued ID, that should be enough. They shouldn't be doing the census every year, sending out the vote, whatever. They should you should show ID every time you go to vote. And if you're not a citizen, no, you shouldn't get to vote. It's obvious. You just shouldn't. Like they were talking about the issues with busing people over state boundaries and stuff like that to vote.
Did they actually talk about that?
Yeah, they brought it up in that, which, honestly, if you're busing people around to vote, are they voting more than once in different states? I mean, when I heard about the busing thing, I'm like, what's that about, But I'm not in the United States, I don't know. But, and then you're thinking, okay, well, if people who are, like they talked about at one point, one woman, she had been born at home with a midwife, so she didn't have the ID to vote, and they sent her home. They said, you can't vote. Okay, well, you work on getting that ID, because if you don't have the proof that you're a citizen, no, you can't vote. No. Honestly, like why not ship a whole bunch of people in from Mexico to vote?
Well, they actually
if you're going to do that, like that's ridiculous. You can't have another country voting for your country's leadership. That's insane. Insane.
Were they saying the Republicans were doing the busing?
I think they were saying the Democrats were.
Well, that's the Republicans' accusation. But what's happening? They pointed out why this is happening. They say it's demographic. They say, and they're talking as though it's inevitable. The demographics are turned. It's racist. It's white people aren't going to be the majority anymore. I think they were saying people of European descent, so they left the weight out, but it's still racist. What you should be talking about are belief systems, and actually the white people in the United States, on average, there are all sorts of exceptions, including many, many Republicans, actually believe in democracy more than any other place in the world.
Well, and you can see it. I mean, we went to the CBC thing at the library on Friday, and I'm going to say it should not have been held at the library. I was very happy to get their 3 square meals on Saturday. Thank you, CBC. Yeah. But should have been vegetarian.
They were bribing us with our own money.
But it's funded by the public, so of course, yeah, I'm going to take my 3 square meals. But I went to the library. I wanted to get some work done on the computer, and it's so loud, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm going to go home. So, but we went back 3 times so that we could get the 3 meals, because they were offering 3 meals in the day. So, we participated, so we could get our 3 meals. James wanted to go anyway. He's a very social person. He loves this stuff. But
I wanted to go, but I wanted to go leave right away. I just wanted to see how racist their hiring practices were.
We got some free caps, whatever. But in any case, what I was going to say is they have diversity. James saw their van leaving, diversity, and they had
it's a big bus.
Bus. They had
diversity.
Sure. And they do seem to want to have superficial diversity, because they're not diverse in terms of say personality types.
No.
You're probably not going to hear a lot of amiable people featured on CBC. You will hear aggressive propagandists featured on CBC.
Interviewing,
and but they will be of
propaganda.
different colors. Their skin color will be different, so superficially diverse. And
how about in terms of their opinions?
Not diverse in terms of their opinions, it seems, and
It's
not.
an echo chamber.
They don't seem to have objective journalism.
Oh, it's terrible.
In the CBC anymore.
I couldn't
which is
agree with you more. You
Yeah.
know, like that's an interviewer.
So
let me add to what you're saying. You know, like.
Anyway, so what I was going to say about James's comment on Friday when we went, we noticed that the audience, there were a bunch of old white guys for the most part, and listening
men
to
and women.
Yeah. And
but
which is funny,
folks.
right? Not so funny that only 6 people were wearing masks. James had counted, and
out of 70, 80 people, it could have been 100.
A lot. And I don't know, were you counting our masks with that number, or were you saying
No, I wasn't.
Oh, okay.
I don't think I was counting.
So anyway, that's crazy. You have 2 minutes to talk about your thing.
Yeah, I'll talk about that later. I just want to finish up on the CBC.
Oh, okay. Talk about it.
I gave the gears very mildly to Judy Aldous. She was doing her spiel, her noontime interview show, and she wasn't wearing a mask. And then she got down and she was cheek by jowl with some person, and no mask. I'm looking around. I think I saw one CBC employee. And I suspect there were more than a dozen there. A little bit hard to identify them all. And my only one was wearing a mask. So, and then there were volunteers working for the CBC, and I didn't see one of them wearing a mask. So, I'm wondering, I asked her, is this going to be a super-spreader event or something like that? She was pretty brusque, shall we say. She's good at brusquing people off. You'll excuse some Joycean type of fun on her interview show if she doesn't like people. Usually it's set up that people have the same viewpoints as her and stuff like that. So, diversity. You know that the person who's down here running their bureau, there's just a one-person affair. It's a man, and I go, well, yeah, this person will say.
Oh yeah.
Representing Lethbridge. So I think he was born around here. Comes from Lethbridge.
But I mean, one thing I was noticing is the CBC, the people working for the CBC were diverse, but the audience, bunch of white guys.
Yeah, they were just looking at agog at worship for him.